For the longest time, I've wanted to make a video expressing my unrelenting love for this thing we call car soccer. But for some reason, I've put it off, mainly because my entire channel and audience is literally centered around this game and the community that already loves Rocket League. So in some ways, it felt kind of redundant, like I'm sort of preaching to the choir. I have at points had videos that sort of went beyond the Rocket League audience to people who don't even play Rocket League. So maybe that could happen with this video, I don't know. Maybe this will reach some of you high-level League players or CSGO, Fortnite players who sort of know about this game and you know it's out there, but you don't get why people love it so much and why it's such a successful esport, even though it's not near as big of a game as so many other games. But whether that happens or not, I finally just realized that I needed to make this video. I need to explain why this game is so good in the purest form on every level. And even if it's not for anybody else, I feel like I just need to express it for myself. Now, I'm not going to make the case that Rocket League is the greatest video game ever made, though I do personally believe it's one of the best, especially in recent times and especially, of its own kind. Rather, I'm going to focus on Rocket League as a pure esport and why I believe it is so much better than traditional sports video games that are out there and even some other popular esports. All right, guys, before we go any further, I have to tell you about the sponsor for this video, which is Audible. Now, I love that I'm getting to promote this to you guys because I feel like it's such a great resource for gamers and especially Rocket League players. So let me explain. We all know that the best way to improve at Rocket League is to spend time in training, whether it's free play or custom training, and usually players make training more enjoyable by just turning on some music. But I found that I actually enjoy listening to an audiobook or a podcast quite a bit more than this because I feel like it's just such a better use of my time than just listening to music. Now, Audible doesn't just have thousands and thousands of audiobooks. They also have podcasts and even things like theatrical performances and guided meditations. It's so much more than just audiobooks. Now, I've been listening to this incredible book called The Passage by Justin Cronin. I've actually already read the book once, and now I'm listening to it on Audible. And man, it's so much better to listen to it than to read it. Plus, it's passive, so I can do other things like drive or play Rocket League. Plus, Audible is just an amazing platform in general. The app is completely free to download. You can listen across devices without losing your spot, and you can download audiobooks and listen to them offline. So if you guys are interested, go to audible.com/FLuuMP to get your first month subscription completely free. Again, that's audible.com/FLuuMP. I've got a link in the description below. Check it out, guys, and let's get into it. To set things up, let's look at a new development in esports in 2020. The 2020 Olympics in Tokyo have partnered with Intel to finally bring esports to the wider world of sports by bringing in video games. The games that they chose? Street Fighter V and Rocket League. Now, Street Fighter V is a top, 40, 50-ish esport, at least in terms of earnings, and Rocket League is a top 15 esport in terms of earnings. In terms of viewership and popularity, I would definitely say that Rocket League is probably higher than a top 15 esport, but still nowhere near as big as some other esports. Now, I'm not going to comment on Street Fighter's inclusion in this. I know nothing about that game. I just know that they didn't want to include games like CSGO, well, because it's obvious why that would be a bad idea in this case. But Street Fighter V, I don't know. Anyways, the question is, why Rocket League? Why not League or Fortnite or Overwatch or Dota? Why is Rocket League being given a chance to represent the world of esports to the wider world of traditional sports? And this gets at the heart of why I fell in love with Rocket League in that spring of 2016 as the flowers were budding and I was just inside mindlessly trying to get good at this game. I believe that the same thing that appealed to Intel and whoever decided to make Rocket League an Olympic esport, that was the same thing that appealed to me in the first place. This is a sports video game that just doesn't feel like any other sports game, and in a very real sense, it feels way more like a real sport than any of those games. You see, there's a problem with sports games. They're just really not fair, and there's a few big reasons why that is, but the biggest reason is that the human body has way more options in real life that just cannot be expressed simply on a controller. From the movement of your fingers and your toes, pivots, and adrenaline-filled surges of energy and running and all of that stuff. It's like when golf games switched over from being, clicking a few times and trying to click inside a certain area to decide whether the ball was hit well or not, to, swiping the analog stick back and forth while tapping a power button. That simulated a more realistic experience, but it's still not even close to the intricacy of an actual golf swing. So to fix this problem, sports games have historically had to add an element of just automated control. Things like, you'd hit the catch button in football and the guy would either catch it or not catch it, and sure, there was a little bit of timing, things like that, or basketball games where you let off the button at a certain time when you shoot, but it still just doesn't really capture what it takes to shoot a basketball. And older sports games like the early Madden games were just more unrealistic in terms of the ability of players, and I personally enjoyed them more than newer Madden games, which just feel slow and I guess realistic. But it doesn't work because they're not realistic. So traditionally, esports have been nothing like real sports because, again, real sports don't work as competitive video games. They're not actually competitive. There's way too much luck. But things like League and Dota and CSGO and Overwatch, and even games like Tetris, these are highly mechanical games, but still not in the same way as learning how to, say, dribble a basketball is. So if there was ever going to be a truly great sports game that looked and felt like a traditional sport, that could even appeal to athletes in the same way that traditional sports do, it would have to capture both the raw simplicity of sports while maintaining that somewhat unrealistic gaming feel that other esports have, even though they don't feel at all like real sports. So it'd kind of have to capture both gaming and sports. So the look and concept behind a game like FIFA, but then the pace and mechanical difficulty and just fun behind a game like, say, Call of Duty or Overwatch or Super Smash Brothers. And that's where Rocket League comes in, with one simple but brilliant twist on the game that we call football in the rest of the world, or here American soccer. A long-standing element of gaming that is always entertaining that they decided to implement into soccer, which is cars. And this was captured really well. Someone at one point said that Rocket League doesn't feel like something that was created. It feels like something that was discovered, like it's always been there. Car soccer. Even though racing a car in a video game is nothing like racing a car in real life, there's so much more to turning and drifting than just a few buttons. That type of sport has always transferred over to video games much better than, say, basketball, because it's not a human being controlled anymore, it's an actual machine. And as technical and intricate as machines can be, they have nothing on, actually trying to simulate what it means to control your own body. Now, the brilliance of Rocket League comes in the next few steps that were taken, and that is the physics and the mechanics. So sports games have traditionally not been proper physics-based games. Making a physics-based game that really balances realism with fun is just so difficult to do. And traditionally, more physics-based games have not been sports games. Shooters and RPG games have a certain level of precision and realism in their physics, but we've never seen a game where you feel as if you're the one down on the field or the court, really interacting with the other players and with the sport in a way that just feels super real and super under control. Now, Rocket League is actually much slower and more realistic than the original car soccer game that came out 10 years ago. And though that's true, Rocket League is actually still much faster and much more exaggerated than real life physics. Now, you may think that this takes away from it feeling like a true sport, but it doesn't in this realm of video games. In fact, there have been certain Rocket League mods, like this one made by Cinderblock, which actually puts you in the driver's seat of the car. And though that's fun and interesting, it doesn't quite do justice to the game and all of the skills that you can develop with that extra little bit of, field of view. Plus, it kind of makes you want to puke. But it is really fun. So the brilliance then in terms of Rocket League mechanics comes in 4 main moves that are otherwise impossible in a traditional car. Sure, you can do lots of things in Rocket League. You can do way more than just these 4 things. You can wave dash and half flip and stall and tornado spin and flip reset and flip cancel and ceiling shuffle and flick and air dribble, but all those crazy moves that take hours and hours and literally hours to master, they're all based on these 4 amazing mechanics that you just don't have with a normal car, and they are this: jump, boost, dodge, and air roll. Without these moves, car soccer would just look like regular real-life car soccer, which we all know is not that much fun and actually doesn't take that much skill. So let's take, for example, air rolling. That is the ability to turn your car in a sort of barrel roll manner, besides just turning it sideways like a normal car. So coupled with the ability to dodge forwards and sideways and diagonally, this means that if needed, you can hit the ball with this incredible level of precision and power by simply air rolling a bit when you go for a shot and then dodging accordingly. And guess what? It is insanely hard. Again, hours. literally hours. And I've pushed virtually everyone that I've ever coached from any rank in Rocket League to master the ability to hit air roll shots, or to start working on it and really start working on placing your shots through these skills, like putting it in the top right corner or putting it in the top left corner. Now, what do you have in FIFA or NBA 2K, whatever, that even compares to this? Let's take passing, for example. How do you pass in FIFA? Now, based on my limited knowledge and the little bit that I've played, the gist of it is basically just hitting a button. Like, yeah, there's timing and making, decisions about what's a good pass, but it's pretty much just hitting a button. How insulting is that to the sport itself? Like, how difficult is it really to master passing in soccer, like hitting high passes, hard passes, leading the player, all that stuff? Now let's look at Rocket League. With the combination of dodging, jumping, boost, and air rolling, passing in Rocket League is you literally in your car actually making a pass to your teammate. It may be bad, it may be good, it may be, an actual shot on goal, like you were actually trying to hit a shot that's so bad it turns into a pass. But regardless of how it turns out, it will turn out the way it turns out because of you, and you only. You really are in complete control. Or let's think about movement in FIFA. You have this little person running around, changing directions, because you are maybe, holding down run and then turning your player. There's really not a whole lot more than that. In Rocket League, if you want to move from one place to another, you have to master things like drifting, high-level mechanics like wave dashing and boost management and half flipping if you're gonna, change your momentum, or recovery mechanics like if you land sideways, you need to hit, be hitting drift when you land so that you don't lose all your momentum. Like, it's just so much more in depth. Or what about defense in Rocket League compared to defense in a game like FIFA? Also, sorry to all you FIFA fans out there. I'm not trying to hate on FIFA. It's a great game for what it is. It's just not a sports game in my opinion. It's more like Age of Empires than proper soccer. And Age of Empires is great, but seriously, if you've played Rocket League for any amount of time, you know Rocket League is a superior sports game. It's the reason it's the only top 15 earning esport that has any sense of traditional sports elements involved. There's also a good chance that you quit Rocket League and went back to FIFA or something like that because Rocket League is so ridiculously hard to be good at, almost like a real sport. Regardless, let's talk about defense in Rocket League. So let's say you're actually in the goal or approaching the goal and you're in a position, as the defender, and you have to be able to stay patient in that moment, but then react really quickly to whatever your opponent throws at you. And if their skills are higher than yours, like if they're better than you, they'll more than likely score on you. But if not, you'll probably be able to handle most of what they bring. Yes, this is true in some other sports games. It's just not to the same level. The funny thing about all of this is that we haven't even begun to scratch the surface of what Rocket League has to offer. Like I mentioned, boosting and jumping. Well, if you combine those two elements in a game with the right physics, you can have flying cars that can be controlled in the air. Now, from the lowest level of play, as you're seeing here, a newer player basically trying to fly their car at the ball and hopelessly failing because guess what? It's really difficult. To, the kind of car control that players have at the highest level in freestylers and pros. It's just unbelievable how far you can get in this game. Flying at the ball and trying to hit it into the goal is novel to Rocket League. Nothing like this has ever really existed, at least not in a way that was good. Flying planes, through things has always been a part of gaming, but to add this to a field with, a ball with opponents, oh man, there's just nothing like it. So when I started playing this game back in 2016, I don't think I understood all of this. In the same way that a kid doesn't fully understand what basketball is when they pick up a ball, they just know that they see other people dribbling, for example, and man, they want to be able to dribble. Like my daughter, she really wants to be able to dribble, and she's practicing it. And, once they master that, they'll start trying to dribble with one hand, or, without needing to look at the ball the whole time. Just like in Rocket League, you realize that you actually have to be able to do all of this stuff without staring at the ball the whole time. Like you have to watch your opponent. But man, there's levels to this stuff. It's insane. And I see it in other video games, definitely. Games like League and Fortnite and CSGO. There's so much depth and you have to put in so much work. And those games are competitive. And they are esports. I'm not saying they're not esports, but they just don't feel like traditional sports to me. Not in that simple, raw way that Rocket League does. Rocket League is so simple, just like in the same way basketball is just trying to get a ball ball to go in a basket, but the depth that is there, it's just so much like a real sport. No matter how much I play other games, like I actually do play a lot of Fortnite with my friends and with my brothers, but I just keep coming back to Rocket League, even to just go hit the ball around in free play, because I think it really has captured that feel of a true sport. In some ways, I almost don't even want to call it an esport, and that's why I personally believe Rocket League should and will go free to play this year. And when that happens, if you're out there and you don't play this game, be ready for it, because then you won't have to spend any money and you too can try this beautiful game. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Do you love Rocket League? If so, what do you love so much about it? Or for those of you that don't play or maybe quit playing, what has held you back from jumping back in and trying it again? All right, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Peace out.